Okay, so meanwhile, the president of the United States, President Trump, has now decided that he wants to put the military on our southern border, and Democrats are losing their minds. Here's President Trump announcing that he wants to put the military on the border yesterday.
Laws for our border. And we are going to be doing some things. I've been speaking with General Mattis. We're going to be doing things militarily. Until we can have a wall and proper security, we're going to be guarding our border with the military.
Okay, so the left went nuts over this. So he says, listen, if we don't have proper security, we should be guarding our border with the military. He says we'll use the National Guard for all of this. I think this is a fine move. I have no problem whatsoever with the president putting the National Guard on the border. This is what he was elected to do. He was elected to solidify that border. And it's amazing to me that so many members of the left are truly upset about all of this. What do they think ICE is? ICE is a federal armed force that is on the border. This is just supplementing that federal armed force with members of the National Guard. And right now, there is a serious problem with not just illegal immigration, but flow of drugs and crime across that southern border. Now, even the Mexican ambassador came out yesterday and said that they understand President Trump's concerns, that this isn't completely ridiculous.
Important. We certainly understand the concern not only that President Trump has, but people in the United States here have about immigration.
Okay, so even the Mexican ambassador, I think, is making some noises that are correct here. The Mexican government has facilitated illegal immigration. This is true. The Mexican government benefits from remittances from people who cross the border illegally into America and then send money back to their family back in Mexico. They have an interest in those sort of cross-border monetary transfers that have been happening into Mexico. And that's why Mexico is not anti-illegal immigration, even though they're anti-illegal immigration into Mexico. But there's a deeper question at issue here. First of all, I just want to point this out. The reality is that illegal immigration does carry with it serious risks, not just in terms of crime, but also in terms of the heroin epidemic. There's a great book called Dreamland by Sam Quinones. I've recommended it on the show before in the things that I like. And one of the things that the book talks about is the fact that the heroin epidemic that's been taking place has largely been pushed by black tar heroin traffickers out of a small town called Jalisco in the state of Nayarit in Mexico, who they take drugs, they look for new markets, and they've set up an entire distribution system all throughout the United States. So according to Quinones, Mexican drug cartels use customer service. They deliver just like pizza delivery, and it really appeals to this new class of addicts who are white, really kind of unfamiliar, maybe a lot of times with the drug world. They don't want to get involved in Skid Row or housing projects where everyone has always bought dope. A drug addict wants one thing above all, and that's reliability. And these guys provided that above all. They relied on being very low profile. They didn't spend their money lavishly. They looked like the day workers outside your Home Depot. They drove old cars. They never used gunplay, drive-by shootings, or any of that kind of stuff because they didn't need to. According to Quinones, all these guys don't like selling heroin, but here's the thing. Back in the town where they're from, they've been humiliated all their lives. Their jobs are dead-end jobs. They work as bakers, they work as farm boys, they work as butchers. They don't have anything pushing them ahead. And as the business model began to take hold in Jalisco, Mexico, the effects were immediately seen in the town. People began to do better. They began to build big houses. They began to have nice trucks, nice cars. All around them, young men saw this, and they saw that this was a route to real economic progress. One of the strangest things I encountered when I was doing this book was how Levi's 501s were these huge forces in pushing the system across the United States. They're these very well-made, very expensive jeans, and the system was a system for turning cheap heroin into stacks of Levi 501s because dealers noticed that addicts they were selling to were fantastic shoplifters. So, I mean, there's a whole system here. The book is really phenomenal and really, I think, a must-read. They talk about the fact that this entire Mexican drug cartel invaded the United States, and when people are about to be arrested and deported, those people are deported back to the United States. They just send people right across the border, new people right across the border. Trump is not wrong to use the military on the border in order to secure that border. But in a second, I'm going to explain to you something amazing, and that is why the left is so all-fired enamored, really enamored, with the idea of keeping the border open. So President Trump wants to put National Guardsmen on the border. Makes perfect sense to me. I do not see why this is a big problem. But there are two groups of people who do have a big problem with this. People who are sort of the normal Democrats and then the radical Democrats. So we'll start with the normal Democrats. David Gergen over on CNN, who's been a longtime Democratic political consultant. He's angry about this, not because the policy is bad, but because he thinks President Trump is too militaristic.
The most disturbing part of the news to me today was this notion that he wants to now send troops to the border. It's true that 2 past presidents have deployed National Guard to the border. Yeah, it was because there were pressing needs. There's no pressing need here. This is more of a political move, and it suggests that the president increasingly sees the military as a play toy that he can make political points with. First, he wants to have this big, massive parade, which most people in the military look at and say, oh, why are we really doing this? And the country's shrugging its shoulders, but he's now got the money. He wanted to take money out of the military budget and pay for the wall. And now he wants to send troops to the border. There's no real reason why we need to send troops to the border.
Okay, this is ridiculous. Okay, I'm sorry, this is just ridiculous. George W. Bush sent a border deployment of the National Guard known as Operation Jumpstart in 2006. It lasted for 2 full years. The operation sent more than 6,000 troops to California, Arizona, New Mexico, and Texas to repair secondary border fence, according to CNN, and construct nearly 1,000 metal barriers and fly border protection agents by helicopter to intercept immigrants trying to enter illegally. And then another president did this too. Does anyone remember? Remember all the way back to 2010 when Barack Obama did this? Okay, Barack Obama deployed National Guard troops as part of a border protection plan in 2010. They said up to 1,200 National Guard troops would be in place along the U.S.-Mexico border for up to a year to assist U.S. Customs and Border Protection. So Democrats are upset with this because the guy who's doing its name is Trump. Otherwise, they wouldn't care. But the suggestion that Trump sees the military as a plaything and that's why he's doing this, Trump literally campaigned on solidifying the border. That's what he campaigned on. So there is no problem here. That's absurd. But there's a deeper problem. And that is, I was asked yesterday by somebody specifically about this issue. Why are so many Democrats, why are so many folks on the radical left interested in open borders? And I said, because there's a group of people who really believe that America bears blood guilt for all of the problems in the rest of the world. They look at America, they say America's rich, America's powerful. There are a lot of people all over the world who are poor, who are not powerful. Lots of countries all over the world where people are suffering. That's our fault because we're rich and powerful. In their view, world politics is a zero-sum game. Well, just demonstrating this, Tucker Carlson had on last night a fellow who calls himself a border angel. Okay, his name is Enrique Morones. He is a person who attempts to smuggle people across the border. He's a founder of the caravan of migrants that was headed to the U.S. via the U.S.-Mexico border from Central and Latin America. And here he is with Tucker Carlson explaining why he thinks that it's fine to smuggle people across the border. And Tucker does a good job with both making the famed Tucker Carlson face as well as quizzing this guy.
And the United States interfering in these countries, the demand for their drugs, invading a sovereign land like Iraq, or interfering in the civil wars of Central America, that causes people to flee. The U.S. should be more welcoming.
So
and
our
there's 20
sins,
much more
sins are the reason this is. So you hate America, is what you're saying.
Very big
I don't know why. Actually, it's
the
interesting. You're blaming America for illegal immigration into America.
Okay, and that is essentially what he's saying. Tucker does a good job of boiling it down there. But this guy is saying that America is responsible for sins all over the world, so America should take in all of the refugees from those sins. So a couple of things that are weird about that. Number one, if you really think America is such a terrible place filled with such awful people, why do people want to get in? Right? If a country victimized my country and destroyed my country and made my country a wrecked state, why would I want to live in the country that just wrecked my state? Why would I want to be a citizen of the country that is apparently just a predatory force around the globe? That's a weird logical gap. Maybe just for the materialistic gain, I suppose. But the other point here is that there is an actual attempt by some members of the radical left to castigate America for our global sins. Again, the idea being that America is bad and America must be punished. Too much of America's foreign policy from the left has been based on this. When Barack Obama did his fabled apology tour all around the Middle East and Europe after he was elected, this was the basic message. America has sinned in the world, and we are here to rectify those sins. And if that means that we have to curb our economy with the Paris Accords, cracking down on American economic growth for the sake of chimerical environmental gain, then we will do it. Everything will be fine because we deserve it. We deserve it. It's our fault, right? And if it comes to propping up the UN, one of the most useless and nefarious institutions in the history of modern politics, if we have to do that in order to slap America itself, we'll do that because America is a guilty place filled with guilty people, and they have to pay. Now, this view of the left is a really dangerous one. And if you're wondering why politics has become so polarized and so yelly and so screamy, it's because there's no way to have a rational conversation with people who legitimately believe that the United States has to pay for its past sins and that virtually everything counts as an American sin. So when President Trump says he's going to put people on the border, I'm all in on that. I think that's a perfectly rational thing to do. And I also think that The illegal immigration crisis is not all that hard to solve. It's just that there are a bunch of people on the left, particularly, who don't want that crisis solved. They want more illegal immigration because they think that America ought to pay on a moral level. That's on the radical left. It's not every Democrat. There are many other Democrats who don't want to solve the illegal immigration situation because they believe that they're going to be able to get additional Democratic voters as people are made citizens, or they believe that, for example, a bunch of people are going to vote Democrat if they see nasty pictures of Republicans pushing for deportations. It's a political football. But again, this core group of leftists who believe that America is a bad force in the world, and therefore we must be punished by taking in all sorts of refugees and immigrants, that's dangerous stuff. And there's no way that the United States can survive with that sort of perspective becoming more and more common. Okay, so now I want to talk about something that really weird that happened yesterday. This is a weird thing that happened yesterday to me. So I have become friendly with a student at Marjorie Stoneman Douglas High School whose name is Kyle Kashuv. He first started becoming prominent when he was speaking out in favor of gun rights, even though he was a witness to what happened at the Parkland